Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 289 and we have a good one for you today. Today's fish was requested by a member of the community, and so as you know, I'm more than happy to do all the requests. Today's fish that we're going to be talking about is the Fathead Sculpin or Shorthead Sculpin. Now, the Fathead Sculpin or Shorthead Sculpin is scientific name Cottus confusus. Again, that's Cottus confusus. It is part of the family Cottidae, which is the family commonly known as sculpins. Now, there are both freshwater and saltwater variants, but this is actually a freshwater species of sculpin. Super neat group, which have interesting adaptations, but super interesting. Now, the Fathead Sculpin is native to northwestern United States, primarily in the Columbia River Basin. So pretty much think Idaho, Oregon, Washington, some of western Montana, but really that Pacific Northwest is where you're gonna find this fish. Such a neat ecosystem. I hope to visit up there someday. Now, this species will inhabit the cold, clear freshwater systems. Small to medium-sized streams and headwater creeks is where you're primarily going to find these. You'll also find them in larger rivers, but more on the margins, so along the edges of the main river. But you will find them sometimes in lakes and reservoirs. This is a very generalistic sculpin, so in terms of like flow rate, so they kind of can survive a multitude of environments. And when you get up to the Pacific Northwest, a lot of those systems have very similar chemical characteristics. So that's why this sculpin can essentially survive throughout the entirety of the Pacific Northwest. But they are most strongly associated with rocky and gravel substrates in areas with moderate to swift current with well oxygenated waters. They really depend on that rocky and gravel substrate, and they do prefer a slightly swifter current, but they also need that well oxygenated water to flow over their gills, and that's because these fish are rather sedentary, and fathead sculpins are in fact like almost always found on or near the bottom, and that's very common for the sculpin family. And you can see they have that enlarged pectoral fin that essentially kind of helps them walk. Now, it is kind of a smaller fish. Not even kind, it's definitely a smaller fish, 7 to 10 centimeters in length with 2.8 to 4 inches, getting up to, I want to say, like, I think 6 ounces. Definitely not a large bodied fish, but like most sculpins, they have that very large kind of flattened head, which is why it has the fathead moniker in its name. And it's also a little bit shorter than a lot of sculpins, so that's where it's got its, other kind of common name, the shorthead sculpin. But like most sculpins, they have a, kind of a flatter head, large mouth, a kind of tapering body, a thick caudal peduncle, these large fan-like pectoral fins that they use for walking, this split dorsal fin that's very elongated, almost a banner, but they do not have scales. They're actually fairly smooth. In terms of coloration, you're gonna have this very mottled brown, gray, tans. Sculpins very often, while a super interesting fish, a lot of them are not colorful and pretty in sort of that coloration sort of way, but still unique. And this patterning is extremely good for camouflaging along the bottoms of shallow rivers and streams because of the dappling of the light. Very neat fish, but kind of that traditional sort of sculpin shape. Now they are benthic and they do not have a swim bladder, So, that's why they do spend a lot of their time on the bottom, and even more so, quite frankly, they spend a lot of their time even below the bottom because they spend a lot of their time hiding beneath rocks. And they just make short, quick movements rather than sustained swimming. Because they lack that swim bladder, they're almost anchored to the substrate. They're not buoyant at all. So, they very much stick to the benthic area. And because they are benthic, as is a lot of benthic organisms, they tend to be very solitary, very territorial in their very small area. And, they basically protect what's theirs pretty fiercely. They do have very large eyes, and that's because they are most active at night or in low light. That's when they come out to feed. This behavior is very much centered around staying hidden during the day and conserving energy when they can, and catching food that's close to them, not going and searching for it. And they're a very opportunistic carnivore. That'd be the best way to describe it. Their diet is going to include things like aquatic insect larvae, small crustacean, worms, fish eggs, sometimes a small fish. Basically, whatever drifts or crawls nearby, they're going to eat it. But kind of like last 2 weeks now episode, fathead sculpins are actually extremely important components to the ecosystem. When you get these smaller systems, removing even one fish can make everything go really out of whack, since they serve as both a predator controlling the populations of aquatic invertebrates, and they serve as prey to many of your important species of fish and birds. Your trout, your salmon, your larger fish, birds such as kingfishers. They're very, very important, but one of the more interesting components about their ecological importance is they are often considered an indicator of good water quality, as they require cold, oxygen-rich environments. And so as freshwater environments warm up due to a large multitude of factors, then it starts losing oxygen, sculpins start doing worse. So they're actually used as an indicator that, hey, the system's actually doing well. It's operating as sort of intended. Now, in terms of reproduction, there's not too much known about it. It typically occurs in spring. Most likely, the males will establish territories under rocks and submerged objects. It is known that the females will deposit adhesive eggs on the underside of the rocks, and then most likely the males will guard and fan the eggs to provide oxygen to the eggs. So a little bit of parental care, but I don't believe they exhibit any parental care beyond that. So, kind of your standard sort of sculpin reproduction, I believe. It's not a very long fish, around 3 to 5 years, so they want to make sure that all their babies sort of grow up and make it there. Now this, as I kind of mentioned, and you probably guessed, this fish is very stable. It's not listed as threatened. It's doing just fine. As always, local populations can be impacted by sedimentation, water pollution, habitat modification, water temperatures. They're very sensitive to environmental changes, but as of right now, this fish is doing kind of just fine, and definitely not, according to what I know and research, where you find these fish, they're not uncommon to be kept by. In terms of the aquarium trade, sometimes you'll get them kept by native fish enthusiasts. A lot of educational institutions use them, somewhere between $15, $20. They don't do too well in traditional aquariums because most people don't realize it. Most of your aquarium fish are based around tropical aquariums, not for cold water stream aquariums. So this fish requiring cold, highly oxygenated water, strong filtration, a rockier substrate, and really preferring low light environments. They're just not really suitable for that typical sort of aquarium setup. Now for the interesting fact I'm going to have a video on, and it's interesting, but it's also not interesting. I mean, in terms of Sculpin, it was very difficult for me to like find something that's super individualistic about this fish that jumps out at you. But the more I looked into it, the more it became apparent at how crucial that this fish serves as prey for trout and salmon in the Pacific Northwest. And I encourage everyone to go look at it. The more you dig into research and studies regarding this sculpin, the less it becomes about the sculpin, and the more evidence is shown that, hey, this is important for trout and salmon. And that's pretty significant. And why it became more and more interesting is the fact that, you know, the Pacific Northwest has some of the most endangered trout and salmon populations in the world. Some of those species are not doing well. We've all heard about this, and there are issues that we can go into for days on. But there's been so much sort of research going into, essentially, if this fish did disappear, it would create such a huge negative environmental and economical impact for the Pacific Northwest trout and salmon fishery that it could be really, really bad. So please go research it. I think it's super interesting. That my interesting fact was not necessarily about this fish, but how important it was for other fish. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If you'd like to support the channel, please click the link down below. It is by no means expected. Very much appreciated. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. And peace.